Hey there, welcome to part 2 of this series on formatting books for print in Microsoft Word. What I was trying to say earlier about setting up a panel over here for the chapter titles, you have to go to View and click on this navigation pane. What that's going to do is show you the chapters that you've set up over here, and it's only going to show you the chapters that you've used for a certain type of text style. And that's why I was saying you've got chapter 1, chapter 2. It's also giving you the in-between because I used the subtitle, and because I use the subtitle default style, it's showing up on the menu, but I don't actually want that in my table of contents. So I'm going to change this style to anything else. I think it's only the H1 and maybe the subtitle that's going to show up over here. So I can change it to something else, maybe subtle emphasis or quote, or I can just save it as a new quick style by going Styles, Save Selection as a new quick style, and I'll say tagline. It's not exactly a tagline, but depending on your book, you might have some text up here like this. You'd have a chapter 1, and then you'd have a name or a short sentence or something else. Because I set it up as a new style, I've got to style it again. So I'm going to have to make my choices and change the line space options to get rid of that indent so it centers properly. And then I'll just save it again. This is something I can now change really easily and quickly whenever I want, just by changing and updating the style. So I have my first chapter that looks kind of okay, but before I can go back through, because I want to go through and change all of the chapter pages to match that first chapter, but it's not really going to work because my headers and my footers and all my new chapter pages are all messed up right now. This one, for example, if you click here, it's empty, it's blank. That's because I have a space here, but the space is still using the subtitle style. So if I delete this, I'm actually deleting the space in the manuscript, which is not what I want. The way to get rid of that would be to highlight this and then choose some other style that's not a fancy style. And I'll just pick on that new one I just made, which was tagline. Seems like that one didn't take. I'll try it again. Styles, update tagline to match selection. So that should take. And this should work. So now if you do it right, and it's also kind of interesting here, it'll say chapter 1 and chapter 2. The reason that this one is all caps and this one isn't, you wouldn't really notice it because it looks like it's all caps. But because I'm using Bebas New, it only has one all caps setting. It doesn't have a lowercase. So that's why actually this needs to be uppercase if I want it to display the same way in my menu. So that's something to be aware of, because you want eventually this menu, once you convert to ebook, this will be your table of contents in the ebook. So you want it to look okay here to make sure it's going to look okay in the ebook. This also just makes it really easy to flip back and forth between chapters, which we're going to want to do later. However, so now we're going to tackle the headers and the footers and the page numbers, which is kind of an ordeal, and one of the reasons I don't like formatting in Word. But if you click on, see, we were here just in the main panel, and up here, the headers, it's a different panel. So when I click on it, I automatically go to Header and Footer Tools, Design, and so I have these choices, and that's what you're going to need. So right now, my header from the top is 0.5, my footer from the bottom is 0.5. That's where the text is going to show up. 0.5 is okay. I might go to 0.4. 0.3 is probably too close to the edge. I would never do a margin of less than 0.3. But header from the top, 0.4 might be okay. So I'll leave that. And then here there's a lot of space too. So footer from the bottom. This one I might set to 0.3 or even 0.2. It's still got quite a bit of space down here. So that might be okay. And with the page number, it's just probably one small number like this. The other thing we're going to want to do, right now this is set at Garamond 11. That's okay. Usually you'll have your book title on one side and your author name on the other side. And so you're going to have, if I click on this again and go to design, you're going to have different odd and even pages. So I'm going to click on that. And what that means is it threw in a page number up here. I'm not really sure why, but I can delete this page number and I'll leave the book title up there. But I don't like this indentation, so I'm going to go to line space options and take away the indent. And actually, you can see here there's more space on this side than this side, which means this is the inside of the book. This is where the gutter is. This is where the spine is going to be. So I want this header to be on the outside page. This is the outside margin, which is a smaller one. So I'm going to go like this to put that over there. And that means on the next page, which is here, I'm going to paste this. I'm going to remove the indent again. This actually, there's something going on wrong with this because this is this, oh, that's right. So this is the inside because it's bigger. So that's the spine and the margin. This is the outside. So that's where my title goes. This is usually upper caps, not always, but usually. So I'll set it to upper caps. Could be italics, doesn't have to be. One might be a different font than the other one. And so the only problem now is this is way too close together. So the top of my text is too close to the header. And to fix that, I'm going to have to increase the margin on the top, which I think I mentioned in the last video. So I'm going to go to page layout, margins, custom margins, and I'll make my top 0.8. So that forces the text down a little bit, but it keeps my header where it should be. And that's okay because I have a 0.5 margin on this side, but even though this margin's a lot bigger, the header fills half that space. And so it makes this margin look about the same as this margin. And on the bottom, this is a little bit too close also. I'd probably want a little bit more space. So I might do the same thing with the margin on the bottom, custom margin. It doesn't have to be 0.8, but maybe I'll have it 0.7 and get a little bit more space here. And I'd want to do the same thing with the footer. So this is the outside of the page. So my page number should also be on the right side. And if I had an indent, I would remove the indent. The other option, which might be a little easier because it can be very tricky to get these right, these have to rotate on the outside of the pages. I'll do that on this too. Line space options, no indent, and so these basically look okay now. But if you don't really care, it's easier to just keep this centered and keep this centered and keep everything centered. Then you don't really have to worry about what side of the page it's on. Is it on the inside or the outside? And it's fine to have them in the center as well. So if you're okay with that, it might save you a little bit of frustration later to just do it that way. I usually like them on the outside, so I'm going to just set it back how it was. And if you've done this well and correctly, the page numbers should just keep going and the rotation should be the same all the way through the book. So even if I go to the very end, I still have the headers up here and the page numbers and everything's still looking pretty good. One thing that might not be the same is the headers and the footers. Sometimes when I go to a new section of the book, these might get reset. But it seems like this one is going to take. And like I said earlier, I'm not really happy with the font up here. I probably would actually change it to something else. You don't usually want something fancy. I don't think I would use Bebas New or even the title font. I might use a really simple serif font like that. I might make it even smaller, and I might increase the spacing. You want it to be small. You want it to be there and to look good, but you don't want it to be overwhelming. And depending on the genre, I'd probably do something kind of like that, which is clean and minimal, and it's going to look a little bit better. If I did want to do that, which I think looks good, I could highlight this and save it as a new style. I think this will work. Let's see. I have to be careful not to call it heading 1 or header 1 because we already have a style for that. And I think we can highlight this and click on heading style. Yeah, I was afraid that might happen. So it kind of worked, except I'd have to change it back to the other side. And as long as I do that once, that should work on all of them. If you change one instance, it'll change all the other ones throughout the book. And I might want to do that with this page number too. If I had changed the style, I'd probably want the page number style to match the header style. So that looks sort of okay now. This actually could be down a little bit further. I could probably do footer from the bottom. There we go. That's pretty low, but it's, I mean, the page number, it's okay if it's pretty close to the bottom. Except for this particular one, for the page number, it's kind of weird to have the text spaced out that far. It's okay on the text on the top, but in this case, I'd probably take away this expanded. That's still even too much. Because we're just not used to reading letters that are that spaced out. And then I'll save this one as no, it's not going to work. This is a special field because it's a page number. If you don't have any page numbers and you need to start inserting page numbers, what you do is go to Insert Page Number, and you'd put it in the current position, and you'd probably just do a plain number, which would put it there. And then later, if the page number's all screwed up, you'd go to Format Page Numbers, and then you can say continue from previous section or start at 1, 2, 3, 4. It'll get a little tricky later. This is the first page, and now I have these two, it looks like 11, but it's not 11, it's two different page number fields with 1. So I'm going to delete one of them to give me with just the 1 page number. And this is actually a bit low. I'm going to go back here again, and I'll go there. And so now my page numbers, they're about in the right space. There's enough spacing from the bottom. There should be enough spacing from the top. Oops. But I forgot to change the spacing on that one. I think it was set at 0.1. It could have been 0, but I just want to make sure that they match. Okay. So that part's done. My headers look okay. I have my author name, my book name, page numbers in the right spot. The thing that's still missing and that's going to mess everything up is what we want to do is break the section every time we finish a chapter, because we don't want these chapter headers or page numbers on the chapter pages. So this page is chapter 4. This should start on a new page, and it shouldn't have a header or a page number. And then I'll have to style the text so it looks fancy. And to do that, you would have to add a page break after the last bit of text on every chapter. So we'll go through that. I'll do it now. It'll take a little bit of time. I'm not sure how many chapters are in this book, but we'll go through kind of quickly. So here's chapter 1. And there is a chapter up here. But if I go to headers and I click on different first page, then the first page of a section is going to have different styling. So right now I click different, and so there's nothing here and there's no footer, and that's great because I don't want them. I could also add some different style. For example, sometimes the chapter pages, they do have a page number, but it's centered instead of a line left or a line right. So there'd be a page number here that's centered, and then after that the page numbers would be left aligned or right aligned. You could do that if you want. I think it's easier just not to have anything on the chapter page. So this one looks okay, pretty much how it is. There's no header, there's no footer. The text starts halfway down the page. This styling I can change later because I have the style set up the right way. So we're going to scroll down now. And this one, it's got enough spacing. It could be a little bit more here, actually. This could be a little bit higher. But we might come back to that later. For now, it's fine. And so what I want to do now is go down to chapter 2. But I'll go to the very end of chapter 1. I'll put my cursor right below the last text on chapter 1. And I'll say insert page break. Or I could go to page layout, breaks, and next page. And this is insert a section break and start a new section on the next page. That's really what I want. I want a new section. So I'll click that. And it actually is going to give me this whole big blank page here, which I don't want. So I'm going to highlight a little bit and delete that. Oops, didn't work. I highlighted too much. So let me try that again. What I'm trying to do is get the next chapter to come up where it should be without deleting that page break I just made. So that should work. And again, we want to make sure that this page, so now that I've hit a page break, I've made that breaks next page. There's a page break here, which means this page has the header and the footer, but this new section doesn't have a header or a footer. And if I've done it right, my page numbers will keep counting anyway. So this is page 11, page 12 with no page number, and then page 13 is still fine. If it's screwed up and it's not fine, I can go to page numbers and insert page number, format page number, continue from previous section, and just make sure that that's set up the right way. Then it should be fine. So I've set chapter 2. The thing I want to be a little careful of, though, is the spacing is going to be messed up. There should be a really easy way to change your style to make sure that you always have the same amount of spacing. For example, line spacing options. I could say before spacing I want 72. There we go. And then I could delete everything, and then I'll have a 72 space. I'm going to save that. I'm going to update the style. And that might not even be enough, actually. I probably want this down a little bit more. So let me try that again. I'll say line space options, 1 to 50. And that just means it's putting automatic spacing down from the top of the page so that every chapter is going to be just the same. And then I'll do style update. And so now if I delete all this extra stuff, any extra spaces, this chapter title, chapter 2, should be just the same distance from the top. It's a little bit tricky sometimes to measure. You kind of have to go back and forth or compare. But as long as you've set your spacing and you know that this is the right amount, this is 150, then it should be fine. And I want to do the same on this one. So right now I think there's some space here, but the space between could be a little confusing if it uses another font or something. So I want to remove the space, then go to line space options, before, maybe I'll make it 50. That might be too much, but it's not bad because remember I want this to start halfway down the page. And then you're going to have to be careful about this stuff. But you can do the same thing, I think, with the first paragraph. This is the first paragraph style. I'm just going to go back to first paragraph. I'll worry about the other styles later. If I highlight this first paragraph style, and go to line space options and before, maybe 60. That way I should be able to delete any extra returns. You couldn't do it for the other paragraphs because then you would have spaces on top of the other paragraphs. But for the first paragraph, you can add automatic spacing on top of the first paragraph to keep it away from this line. And that way you can make sure that they're always the same. Update first paragraph to match. So now my first paragraph, I'll have to delete all this extra stuff. But my first paragraph is going to be the right distance from here, and this is going to be the right distance from here. This one's actually too far. Maybe I'll set it to 30. And remember, you want to make sure this starts about halfway down the page, so I can zoom out. See how it looks? There's probably a little bit too much space here still. I'll set it for 20. This could go a little bit higher. So that's about halfway down the page, and this looks not too bad. I like having a lot of space up here on top. I could even put this one higher. And then make this one lower. So this is the kind of stuff you want to figure out and play with for a while before you make any firm decisions, because you don't want to do this all the way through. On the other hand, once I've updated these styles, update heading 1, update first paragraph. Once I've set these styles and updated them, then it's going to be the same on every chapter. Let me see what I put up here. So this is style 1. And I could have that italics. And so your chapter is going to look like that, kind of. And we can change this later. We can figure other things out. But doing your spacing that way from the line spacing options means that you don't have to worry about the amount of spacing or the amount of return between all these elements. It's always just going to be the same. It's going to be even. And then I can just go through real quickly. So here's the end of one chapter. It's kind of too bad it ends, you know, it's a orphan sentence. Some people really don't like when there's just one extra sentence on the end, but I don't think it's really worth avoiding. I'm going to put the cursor here. I'm going to go to page layout, breaks, next page. And then I'll delete all these extra returns. And then if I go like this, H1, it automatically puts all that space in. This one doesn't have a subtitle. I can go to first paragraph. First paragraph looks like that. There should be this other sentence here, but it looks like this paragraph doesn't have an extra sentence. So what I'd probably want to do is add more spacing or extra spacing, or I'd want to put something here because you want all the paragraphs to look about the same. Yeah, because so this is the normal spacing, but it doesn't quite match all the other ones. And also see here the lower caps are back again. So if I want to make these uppercase, I'd have to go through and make them all uppercase. However, because I don't want to do that 30 times, it'll actually be faster for me just to go through, unless you really have a preference to capitalize each word. Because that looks just as good. You just want them to be consistent. You don't want them to be some uppercase and some lowercase. And that way, when I go down to chapter 4, I gotta hit return here because that's justified. But this spacing looks okay. There's no header or footer, so I'll go on to the next one. Here's the other one. So I'll hit page layout, breaks, next page. Then I'll delete all this extra. This one got justified again. I think the reason it's doing that is because I'm hitting page break and putting my cursor right here. Next time I'll try skipping a paragraph first before I do it. So this is here on the top. I can just go to heading 1, first paragraph. Same thing about this spacing, but it's fine. Probably I'll just leave a little bit of extra space so that it matches the ones that have something else here. This has an extra space here. I'm going to take that out. So I'm going to leave this much spacing. There's 2 returns. I'm just going to copy that and paste it here so that I know they all have the same amount of spacing. Oops. I shouldn't need to do that for the rest. As long as I don't delete it, the other one should already be set up that way. So there's no header here, no footer. I'll go down to the next one. So instead of just going here, this time I'm going to hit return once and then do next page. And that way I won't get this weird justification issue. I do still have to delete a little bit, just one line it looks like, to get this back where it should be. So that's first paragraph. Here's chapter 5. I'll do that again. And you're just going to have to go through and do this for all of them, but it probably will take you less than 30 minutes. And once you've set up your styles, all you're doing really is highlighting and choosing the style. Later, once you decide on the style for your first paragraph, like maybe I want to have this all uppercase, and maybe I want to have a drop cap here. Insert drop cap. You're going to have to go through again and make those same changes to every chapter. But first, you just want to make sure that you've got your basic page is set up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that you've got all your chapter settings. If you do it right, all your chapters should be listed here on the side. To get the navigation again, you have to go to View and then click on Navigation pane so you can see it. This kind of just tells you that you're doing it right. It'll also tell you if you have weird extra spacing or things. And on all your chapter titles, there should be no heading, no footing, but on your other pages, here it starts to look a little better. You can see how they're mirror images. This is the inside of the book because it has the gutter, it has more margins. And these are the headers and the footers, and they're mirrors and they look pretty good. So I'll stop this video now because I'm only on page 37 of 351, and there are, let's see how many chapters there are. 40 chapters, 46 chapters. So it's going to take me probably, I don't know, 30 minutes to go through and set all these up. So I'm going to do that first. And remember, all I'm doing, I'll do one more. All I'm doing is going to the end of one chapter, putting my cursor here, going to page layout, breaks, next page. And then I just have to delete a little bit to get this to the top of this new section. Make sure that this still looks fine. If I delete too much, it might go back to this page or screw up the formatting here. And I'm just changing this style to heading 1 and first paragraph. And that's all I'm doing. This one actually has more spacing here than the other ones did. So I'm going to fix that. I just copied, pasted the spacing that I took from an earlier chapter and used it there just to make sure that the spacing is all the same. If you're actually doing it right, like that's not the most reliable way to do it. What I should have done is save this as a new style and make it a paragraph without that subtitle or tagline here, and just added a few more lines into the line spacing options so that I could just click like new paragraph style or first paragraph style 2, and it would always be the same, and I don't have to count how many returns there are, how many extra spaces are up here, because that's kind of sloppy. Why don't I do that now, actually? So I'll delete those. I'll highlight this. Line spacing option should be, I'll say 80. And I'll save that as a new quick style. And I'll say first paragraph 2. So now I could go back to these other chapters where I have this extra spacing. I can delete the spacing and choose first paragraph 2. That's just a little bit cleaner, and it'll be harder for me to mess anything up if I do it that way. And also, if I decide that I want it to be different later, if maybe there's not enough space here, I want to add a little graphic or anything else, now I have the page style, so it's going to be all automatic. Oops, sorry. Okay, I'm going to go through, I have 40 more chapters to go, so I'm going to go through and make all these page breaks, and then we'll start playing with some other things that we can do to make your print formatting cooler. So follow along in the next video, which is just going to be down below.